Hi, and good evening, you all. I'm your host, Caroline, and I hope you can hear me. So please just let me know if you can. Yes, someone is typing, so I guess that is all good. Hi, Dr. Maria. I guess you can hear me too as well.
Hello, Caroline. How are you? Good evening.
Good evening, all good. Happy to have you here again. And of course, also, I am very glad to see you all here. And welcome to our another live event, which is another patient meetings. Yesterday, we started with this new project, and today we have a second patient meeting, online patient meeting. And of course, as most of you possibly already know, we gather here now twice a day throughout whole April to support all the patients that are struggling with their with the how because they are not able to continue or start their treatment, IVF treatment. So that is why our Stronger Together initiative has been brought to you so that you can meet the top best experts in the field, but also receive some answers that have been bugging you, I'm sure, and that also can give you an opportunity to connect with some other patients that are exactly at the same situation, have the same situation as you. Okay, so Stronger Together has been created for all of you, so you can join it. And also, we, with the help of our partners, it was possible for us to actually do it. And those partners are, just wanted to remind you about them: Donor Conception Network, Fertility Clinics Abroad, National Fertility Society, Egg Donation Friends, and WhereIVF.com. All right. And of course, it wouldn't be also possible without our IVF experts. And as you already see, there is one of such expert here with us. It's Dr. Maria Arque from Fertility International, which is located in Barcelona. Some of you possibly already know her. This is not her first live event for her. And today she will talk about the impact your lifestyle can have on your fertility, among other things. So we will start with her short introduction, and then we will answer. She will answer, of course, all the most common questions that are asked by the patients, and of course then it will be your time to ask your own questions so that Dr. Maria can advise you. All right, so um, this event is being recorded, so you will still have a chance to rewatch it. Okay, Dr. Maria, are you ready to?
Yes, I'm ready. Caroline, thank you so
Perfect.
much for your kind introduction. I would
Thank you.
also like to kindly ask the audience, please, to let me know if you all hear me well, please, before I start speaking. Thank you. Fantastic. Perfect. And it's a pleasure to be here as usual. And today we're going to be speaking about one of my favorite topics, which is the impact of lifestyle and diet on fertility outcomes. One of the main reasons why this is a topic that it's very interesting for me is because, I mean, we all know that in most of the cases, or in a lot of cases, one of the main reasons why we struggle with infertility is because nowadays, because of how society has changed, how life has changed, we kept on postponing motherhood, and we tend to decide that we want to be mothers later in life because of a lot of different circumstances, because of our jobs, because we have not found a partner, because we didn't have the economical stability, for whatever reason. And obviously, age is one of the most important factors when we want to do a fertility treatment, and it's the one that it's going to determine as well the likelihood of success, especially when I am speaking when we are trying to do the treatment with our own eggs. But what I like the most, this is something that we cannot change our age, right? This is what it is, or we cannot change our ovarian reserve. We have the limits that we have, or the quality of our eggs in general. But the good thing about lifestyle and diet is that those are factors in your life that you can control, that you can make some changes to have a more positive or a more healthy lifestyle and diet, and this can contribute in a positive way to your outcomes with your fertility treatment. And that's what I really like the most about that it gives you guys the possibility of proactively do something to contribute to increase your chances of having a positive outcome, of having a baby, that it's the main reason why we are all here in the fertility field. So yeah, that's the main reason why I like that. I think that it's going to be easier to go through all the topics with all the questions that we have already prepared to answer for you guys, because those are the questions that I usually get asked the most by patients when I see them in my consultations, and this is usually a topic that I usually try to spend quite a lot of time discussing with patients whenever they are open to that, because I think, as I was saying, that the good side of this is that you can proactively do that for your fertility and also for your overall health, because at the end of the story, whatever you're doing to improve your fertility, it's going to improve your overall health as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. And yes, as you have said, now we will start with the most common questions that we receive from the patients. And one of such question is this one: what are the main lifestyle factors that can affect ART outcomes?
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is nowadays a huge topic, lifestyle and diet on fertility, on ART outcomes. And obviously, as I was saying at the very beginning, there is part of the factors that we cannot, that are what we call non-modifiable, and those that are modifiable. In those that are modifiable and that concern lifestyle, I would say, just to put them in a list, in a very clear list of main factors, I would say that diet is one of the main factors that can have an impact. Then we have your weight or your BMI in general, which is related with obesity or being underweight, all those things. So having a healthy BMI, exercise or physical activity, smoking, alcohol. Then we're going to speak also about caffeine, because there's a lot of very contradictory information all over the place about what should we do if we want to get pregnant. Should we drink caffeine? Should we avoid it completely? What's the story? Caffeine, alcohol, obviously drugs, and then stress. Those I'd say that are the most important ones that we can address. And also another one that I would like to specifically address are supplements or vitamins, because that's another question that it's frequently asked, and I think that it's important that we discuss a little bit what's the evidence that we have related with using fertility supplements to try to boost our chances of having a successful outcome when we're about to do the cycle.
Perfect. And actually, we will be, looking at all those aspects very detailed, yes, because the next question is actually, what is the evidence on the impact of smoking on fertility and reproductive techniques?
Perfect. So with smoking, the evidence is very clear, both for male and for female. In the case of female, it is clear that smoking can reduce the ovarian reserve, that it can have what we call a mutagenic effect on the oocytes, and it can increase the risk of having an ectopic pregnancy, and it's linked to a higher risk of miscarriage. Also, we've seen that patients who smoke can even have menopause up to 4 years before than patients who don't smoke. And yes, as I was saying, it is also related with having less likelihood of having a successful outcome or a pregnancy that goes well. It has been related with miscarriages, and also it has been related with lower response when we are doing an IVF treatment. So usually there is less oocytes collected in total, less mature oocytes, and therefore usually the likelihood of having a successful outcome out of the IVF cycle is less. Also, in patients who are doing the treatment with an egg donor, we've seen a ratio or a likelihood of implantation that it's lower. And then smoking also has a negative effect on the quality of the sperm too, because it increases what we call the oxidative stress in the body, and that can increase the sperm DNA fragmentation and also alter some of the parameters of the quality of the sperm related with motility and morphology, and also up to concentration. Not usually the concentration, but especially the morphology, and also can affect the motility.
Perfect. Thank you for explaining this to us. And now let me go to next question for you. If we are looking for pregnancy, should we completely stop drinking alcohol? What about coffee, as you already mentioned this as well?
Yeah. So about alcohol, the evidence it's not that clear when we are looking for a pregnancy. It is completely clear, and I am very clear about my advice with that. That once you are pregnant, you should completely avoid alcohol. Zero tolerance with alcohol once you are pregnant, because we have very clear information, even very clear that about the negative effects that alcohol can have on a baby once you are pregnant. But when we're speaking about seeking for a pregnancy, looking for a pregnancy, the evidence is not that clear or that conclusive, both for male and female. It is true that women, we have less tolerance to alcohol, okay, in general, and most of the guidelines, the guidelines, for example, from the NICE, that are the ones that they use in the UK, and the guidelines also from the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, that are the ones used in America, they recommend that we don't drink more than 1 unit of alcohol a day if we are female, and guys should not drink more than 2 units a day. Just to clarify what is a unit, because sometimes there's patients who are a bit confused about what a unit is, because sometimes it's not that easy to know. For example, one glass of wine would be 2 units of alcohol, or one beer would be 2 units. So we should be drinking very, very little. My personal advice in that sense is that I'm not saying that you should completely avoid alcohol while you're doing a fertility treatment, or when you are seeking for a pregnancy naturally. But I would not promote getting drunk or anything like that. What I'm saying is, if I wouldn't recommend to drink on daily basis, but if on a Saturday night you go out for dinner and you fancy a glass of wine, it's okay. Okay, it should not be a problem. Always with a lot of moderation. But there is not enough evidence, both for male and female, that we should completely stop drinking alcohol, or that to stop completely would increment or increase your chances of having a positive outcome with the treatment. And about coffee, there has been a lot of data that we were very terrified with the data with coffee, and there's a lot of old articles and papers saying like women who drink coffee have higher risk of miscarriage, or it's going to be more difficult for you to achieve a pregnancy if you drink a lot of coffee, or you should stop completely drinking coffee. Very recently, late last year, there were a couple of studies published in the Fertility Specialist, which is one of the main reviews or papers that we use for fertility, that they studied in the Scandinavian population, which are probably the people who drink more coffee in the world. And they made those studies on patients who were undergoing intrauterine inseminations and IVF, and they were drinking up to maybe 4 cups of coffee a day, and they did not see any difference in terms of success rates or miscarriage rates in patients who were drinking coffee and the patients who were not drinking coffee. And so far, this is one of the best evidence that we have in terms of a study that is well done with a lot of patients and everything. So in that sense as well, my advice would be, if you love coffee and you really fancy coffee, it's not necessary that you completely abstain of drinking coffee while you're looking for a pregnancy. Obviously, I would not recommend or I would not encourage anyone to drink more than one or two coffees a day, but but it's not necessary to completely avoid it if it's something that you really like.
Perfect. Thank you so much for explaining that. So it's, I guess some of us at least are like, okay, good to hear
Mhm.
that we still can drink at least some coffee. Perfect. Thank you so much for this. Okay, let me go straight to the next one. How does stress impact infertility? What can I do to manage it better?
Mm. Yeah, so we have growing evidence about stress having a negative effect on the likelihood of having a successful outcome with fertility treatments in general, both IVF, both egg donation, with everything. The thing is that in general, the data that we have, it's very heterogeneous because it's very difficult to to quantify the stress or to quantify it or to have just a single way to measure it. So we have several different studies, but in most of them the stress is measured in different ways. What we've seen is patients who are more stressed, maybe we will be collecting less eggs on the day of the egg collection, and we're going to see a little bit less fertilization rate. But what we can see in general is that the effects of stress are negative. How big is that impact? It is not clear. um, so what we can say for the moment is that we should try to do our best to try to have our stress under control as much as possible. How can we do it? How can we manage it better? um, Most from my experience, things that are working quite well for lots of my patients are doing meditation. Lots of my patients started doing meditation during the time that they were doing or when they were preparing for the fertility treatment. And there are some apps that you can find, like Calm, Headspace, or even other ones that you can find short meditations, and it should be easy. Now with these times that we have the COVID-19 and all these situations that we're confined at home, probably most of us will have a little bit more time, and that would be probably a good moment to try to start. And this is going to have lots of benefits for you, not only for fertility, but probably for managing stress in general in your life. There's some sports like yoga that helped a lot of my patients as well to manage stress. But for each person, it might be something different. For someone, I don't know, might want to go play soccer, and that's the way that they get released of stress. Doing some physical activity or some exercise, that's something that can definitely help for sure as well. And then also, a lot of my patients found acupuncture very helpful to manage stress. I would always try to go for things that are more natural. I would try to avoid taking any medication for managing stress. It would be okay if you are taking like herbal teas, or it would be okay to use more natural ways. But I would probably recommend to try to avoid any medications for that if possible.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you so much for providing the details for us on this topic too. Now let's see this one. Some people say that we are what we eat. What foods should I eat and what should I avoid when looking for a pregnancy?
Yeah, I mean, this talk we could stay like for a lot of days speaking about what we should eat and what we should avoid eating when we are looking for a pregnancy or undergoing a year. In general, to sum up a little bit all the info that we have, what we've seen is that it is very clear that diets that are rich in processed foods, lots of sugars, trans fats, and all these unhealthy foods are related with poorer outcomes. This is like it is. This is also apart from the fact that you are having a very poor diet. This increases the oxidative stress in your body. Most of the patients who might have a dietary pattern that it's more linked to have a very unhealthy diet, more like the typical Western diet or the American diet, to say it somehow, most of them are also going to have a problem with weight. Most of them are going to to be overweight or obese, and this is also one of the main factors that contributes to have a negative effect on the likelihood of achieving a pregnancy, both naturally, but both when we do a fertility treatment. If your weight is very high, you are probably going to need more dose of medication. The ovaries are going to respond less. And then apart from that, there is higher risk of miscarriage, higher risk of having abnormalities on the baby, and higher risk of having complications along the pregnancy, like the preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, and all those things. So that's one of the main things. What should we be eating? I'm not going to get in detail into specific diets like or intermittent fasting or keto diet, or should we do vegan or vegetarian or eat everything. I'm not going to go a lot in detail into that, except if there are any specific questions. But in general, what we should do is mainly follow the recommendations of the main health guidelines in terms of the diet. So we should have a diet that is basically based on fresh products that are local, that if possible are organic. Vegetables and fruits should be one of the core principles of our diet. And then we should make sure also that we have a good source of good quality fats and good quality protein. Good quality fats, they can come both from vegetables, like for example seeds, nuts, avocados, or coconut oil, things like that. And then a good sources of protein would be like, it can be fish. You can also eat meat, eggs, and also tofu or other kinds of things if you're vegetarian or vegan. When we're speaking about animal products, the important thing is that we know the source, and that they are if possible organic, and that they avoid as much as possible all those products like antibiotics or growth hormones or things like that. Those are the most important things. Then in terms of how many times to eat a day and all those things, that really depends on each person. There's people who manage as well with having just breakfast, lunch and dinner. There's people who needs to have snacks in the middle. That really depends on your lifestyle and whatever suits you better. But what I think that it's important is that we keep in mind that our diet should be healthy in that sense, that we should avoid having very large meals in general, that at the end of the day, what's going to help us as well to keep our weight within the normal range is having a diet in which our calorie intake is equal as the calories that we need every day to maintain the weight. So that's one of the most important things as well. Having said that, life is life, and we have to enjoy a little bit, because already to have to go through a fertility treatment, or it's already something stressful and difficult. In the same way that I was saying before, that I would not recommend to drink obviously on daily basis, but if one Saturday night you go out for dinner and you fancy one glass of wine and you are not pregnant yet, you can have your glass of wine. I'd say the same with having little. Like, I don't like the term cheat meal, but I would say that if one day you go out now you're not going to go out for dinner because we're all confined at home, but if you one day you fancy, I don't know, baking a cake for your family or whatever, it's okay to sometimes have something to indulge yourself and to pamper yourself. But on daily basis, we should be like very steady with following a diet with those principles that I was explaining. There is I really like a publication that there is you can find it on the Harvard website, that is called the Harvard Plate, which is it's a scheme about how our plate should look like to be healthy. And I think that it's very useful. And they also have some very visual data, which is very easy to see exactly which would be the portions of food that we should be taking for each kind of food. For example, if it's a veggie, it's like almost all your hand. If it's the fats should be just the small part of your thumb, things like this to make it very easy to calculate also the portions.
So much for all the details. Okay, that's for sure was very informative. Thanks for that. So I'm sure all of us are wondering now, every now and then, what's okay, what's not. So thank you. And now let's go to the next one for you. What is the impact of weight on artificial reproductive techniques outcomes? Do I have less chances of success if I'm overweight?
Yeah, I think I already covered this question a little bit when I was explaining everything related with the previous question. So, yeah, we have some data that patients who are overweight or obese are more likely to have a more erratic response to the stimulation when we're doing a cycle of IVF with their own eggs, which means that a lot of times they need more medication. It's possible that we collect less eggs. Obviously, the egg collection is going to be more difficult because the access for the egg collection can be more difficult. And then it has also been linked to higher risk of having a miscarriage and to have some more difficulties or a likelihood of complications along the pregnancy. Also, being overweight or obese in male, it has been related with lower levels of testosterone a lot of times, and also with poorer sperm quality.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for this one. And the next question is, what do we know about the impact of physical activity on artificial reproductive techniques results?
Mm. Yeah. So physical activity is also another very big topic that we can spend like a lot of time speaking about. Generally, when we speak about physical activity, there are some specific aspects about the physical activity that we have to take in consideration. When we say physical activity, that doesn't necessarily mean working out, and that doesn't necessarily mean doing exercise at the gym. We also speak about how active you are in your life, okay? Because there's people who, for example, are super active and they don't go to the gym because they walk a lot through the day. They have jobs that are physically very demanding. So that's something that we have to take in consideration as well. And when we're speaking about exercising, we should take in consideration not only the intensity of the exercise, which is very important, but also the frequency and the length of time in which we're doing that exercise. Okay. Generally speaking, being physically active will have a positive effect on your overall health and also on your chances of the cycle being successful. And in general terms, the idea would be that if we have a sedentary work, like most of us have, like we are like 8 hours or 10 hours or the time that we are at the office working, sitting down, we should do at least 30 minutes of physical activity a day of moderate intensity, which would be like brisk walking or doing a gym class which is not super demanding, or swimming, or going for a jog or something like that. And if not, we should do at least 3 times a week physical exercise that it's of more intense activity. Okay, that it's also at least for an hour or so, 3 times a week. That way, that's going to help us to maintain our weight. Okay, that's going to also to help us to avoid that we become insulin resistant, or that we are more prone to have diabetes or to have a high blood pressure. And also it's going to have a beneficial effect on our likelihood of having a successful outcome with our fertility treatment. So that would be the idea, to try to be physically active. On the other hand, there's people who work out a lot, and I'm speaking about people who are doing like high intensity training most of the days of their lives, or they are super fit, like working out a lot. This also can have a negative effect, especially, for example, for women who lose a lot of their fat from their bodies. The percentage of fat in their bodies is low. They can even lose their periods because of that, and that also would have a negative effect on the likelihood of success. So most of the moderation in that case is the key, and the intensity of the exercise is something to be considered. If you're not working out at all, I think that it's important that at least you try to be active, as I was saying. Okay, like go walking to places, try to go for walks. If you have a dog, that's perfect because that's a fantastic excuse to go for a walk with the dog, or for a jog. And if not, to try to look for something that you would enjoy that can also help you to cope with stress, putting like the pieces together to cope with stress, because it's your time to dedicate to yourself doing a sport or an activity that you like and that involves a little bit of movement. That would be fantastic. And if that becomes a habit in your life and you do that on daily basis or almost daily basis, even better.
Perfect. Thank you so much on your advice on this definitely important topic too. And now it's this question: should I take supplements and my partner? In that case, what supplements would you recommend?
My goodness, that's a very difficult question. I know that I was the one who said that this is something that we had to address because that's something that patients ask a lot. But about supplements, I mean, there is 1,000 million of supplements out in the market, and it can be very confusing and very tricky to know which are the supplements that you should be taking, because all of them claim to be like a fantastic solution for your fertility problems. So what should we believe? In general terms, most of the data that we have, or the Cochrane reviews, which would be like the best evidence that we have about that, both for male and for female, say that there is no, especially for female, that there is no clear evidence about supplements being something that we should be taking to improve our chances of having a positive outcome, besides obviously the folic acid that we have to make sure that you take, just to avoid that there is an increased risk of having neural tube defects. Okay. I think that it's also important to check that you don't have any deficiency on any specific vitamin, because if that's the case, I think that this should be covered. For example, vitamin D deficiency, it's something very prevalent, because even though I'm, for example, Spanish, and I live in a country that usually it's very sunny, I spend most of my day working. So uh, probably I'm deficient in vitamin D as well, because we don't get that vitamin from the sun, and which is the main way to transform the vitamin in the active way. So we should look at if we have any specific deficiency. But apart from the folic acid or any specific vitamin deficiency that we might have, there is no evidence about the rest of supplements. About antioxidants for male, it is true that last Cochrane review said that in patients who have alterations in the sperm, alterations in the motility, in the morphology, or in the concentration, taking a supplement of antioxidants might be helpful, and in some cases might even help to increase the likelihood of having a baby. The problem is that if you ask me, okay, Maria, but which is the supplement exactly that increases that likelihood of having a baby? We don't know, because most of the studies have been done with combinations of different antioxidants. So we don't know which is exactly the formula. Okay, what I can tell you guys is that most of them have very similar products in it. So the main ones, which for example for male would be zinc, selenium, vitamin E, vitamin C, and all those. Those are going to be in most of the preparations. Then I saw some questions there coming, so I'm gonna try to address that as well here, because we are in the part of supplements. A lot of patients, when they are in the situation of probably having already done 1 or 2 IVF cycles that unfortunately did not go well, there is an age uh, problem as well, because of age the egg quality probably will not be very good, and they are in that situation of maybe doing the last cycle of IVF, or maybe moving towards ectonation. And obviously they come to the consult to see you and ask you, hey, what are the supplements that I can take, Maria? Should I take CoQ10? Should I take melatonin? What is the evidence on taking those? So, for example, CoQ10 is an antioxidant that was mainly used for cardiac disease, and it showed very good results for cardiac disease and all of these things related. It is true that CoQ10 is an antioxidant, so I don't think that this is going to do any harm at all if you take it. But the evidence that we have about the impact that it can have on egg quality is very small, because the studies that are published are studies that are very little, with very limited number of patients included, and with results that are not that conclusive. So what I would say is, it could be helpful. I'm not saying that it is not, but we don't have enough evidence to support giving that supplement to all patients. If you can afford it and you can want to take it when you are about to do the last cycle of IVF, or when you are concerned about the egg quality, I think that you can take it. And always, if you take it, it's better to take it in the form of equinol, because it's the one that you can absorb better. And with melatonin, a little bit the situation is pretty much the same in terms of evidence. So melatonin is one of the hormones that we produce naturally, and that it helps us sleep well. So there has been some studies issued as well related with that this can be something that can help with the quality of eggs, but it's not that clear. What I can say exactly, it's the same, that if you can afford it and you want to take it, you can do it. I don't think that it's going to do any harm, but the evidence is not as good as to recommend it generally, and probably at least you're going to be sleeping well if you take it.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for covering that topic here as well. And I believe this is the last question, common question here. Can you sum up the main recommendations regarding lifestyle to improve our chances of pregnancy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, to in a nutshell, to try to be very very specific about everything that I said. First of all, I think that if you smoke, you should quit smoking, not only for fertility but for your general health. So this is one of the main recommendations. In terms of alcohol and coffee, you can, once you are not yet pregnant, you can drink both in moderation. So I'm saying just maybe one glass of wine when you go out for dinner on a weekend, or something like this, but not more than that. And with coffee, you can take 1-2 cups a day without a problem. Okay. In terms of BMI, you should try to keep your BMI within the normality range, not too low, not too high. So ideally, it should be between 20 and 25. Being physically active and doing some exercise, that's something that is going to be beneficial for your fertility as well. We would recommend that you do at least 30 minutes of moderate physical activity on daily basis, and if not more intense activity, at least 3 times a week. Um, to try to look for mechanisms that help you cope with stress, not only the stress related with fertility, but also the stress related with your daily life. That's something important as well. Meditation, yoga, acupuncture are ways that can help you with that. But as I was saying before, everyone has their hobbies or their ways to cope with stress, and whatever works for you, it's going to be fine. And then in terms of diet, what you should avoid is anything that is processed, anything that has a high percentage of sugars, of refined sugars or carbohydrates, all those fizzy drinks, fatty foods, trans fat as well. Try to have a diet that it's mainly based on fresh products, if possible that they are organic, that vegetables and fruits are the core of your diet. And yeah, that you, and make sure that you have a good balance in between protein of good quality, high quality, that it's not treated with antibiotics, that it's not treated with growth hormones and things like that. A good source of healthy fats, and also lots of veggies and fruits, as I was saying. That probably will help you better than taking lots of multivitamins, because you will get the vitamins directly from the veggies and the fruits. Um, And I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say. And the supplements, folic acid for sure, for everyone that is seeking for pregnancy. Check your vitamin D levels. If you're vegan or vegetarian, look for your B12, which is probably going to be low, okay? And check that your protein intake is sufficient. And yes, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say related um,
Mhm.
with lifestyle and the things that we can do to improve chances of pregnancy.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for all the details on that and answering all those most common questions. And now it will be time for the questions from our patients. So let me
Mhm.
go straight to the first one. We have a few of them already. Some of them, of course, will be like repeated. So just if you could shortly add anything that you can recommend. But the first one is this: advice
Mhm.
provided around eating fish is very confusing. Which white fish is best to eat, and also which oily fish, and in which quantities?
Hmm. Natalie, this is a very interesting question. I'm happy that you asked that because I understand that it can be very confusing. The confusion comes from the fact that nowadays a lot of the fish that we have it's very contaminated, and we are mostly concerned about the very high concentrations of mercury that we can find, especially in big fish and big oily fishes like probably like tuna, shark, swordfish, and things like that. In terms of white fish, I think that white fish that it's of high quality and that it's wild if possible, you could eat the one that you want. And in general, white fishes, the good thing that they have a very good source of protein, and usually they are very low in fats. So the nutritional characteristics of the white fish in general are good. I would also try to look for something that it's not very salty. For example, cod sometimes as it's preserved in salt can be very salty. I would probably try to avoid that. If it's salty, if it's a fresh one, you can have it. And yeah, I would avoid also these kinds of fishes that are considered low quality in the terms that we know that they are like in the lowest part of the food chain, and they might be eating lots of the things that might be contaminating both the sea and the water, like for example tilapia and things like that. I would avoid those. But the other ones, I think that for example you can eat any of the white fishes, as I was saying, if they are high quality and they are yeah, from a good source. And in terms of oily fish, what I would say is that for sure I would avoid to eat any of the fishes that we know that are very that have a very high concentration of mercury. Avoid, or at least control mm, the consumption of those. Okay, and the first one would be tuna. Okay, it's not that you cannot eat it. If you really love tuna when you go for sushi or because you love it, you can have it, I don't know, once a month. But I would probably avoid it. It's better that you try to eat oily fish that it's smaller, because the one that it's smaller will not have that much mercury. That would be, for example, sardines or mackerel, or the ones there is one that I don't know the name in English now. I don't remember. No, it's mackerel. Mackerel. Sorry. Yeah, no, mackerel, sardines, or anchovies. Those that are small, that would be a good source of oily fish. And I'd say that you can eat oily fish around twice a week, and white fish around 2-3 times a week. Also, salmon is a good source of oily fish, because I didn't say anything about salmon. Salmon is also a good source of oily fish. I would probably look for salmon that is wild, because most of the salmon that we have now in the supermarkets is salmon that it's from farms, and the composition of this salmon is not exactly the same one as the one from the wild. It has more fats. It's not as, nutritionally speaking, it's not as good as the wild one. So if you can find the wild one, that would be perfect.
All right, perfect. Thank you for your question and your advice, okay, on that. Lots of information, but definitely useful. And you already have mentioned this, and we have two very similar questions. So let me show you the first one. I have read the book. It starts with the egg, and I would like to know your thoughts on CoQ10. I am currently taking 400 milligrams per day, but it is expensive. Is it worth it in your experience? And let me just show you the next one, as it is, as I've mentioned, very, very similar to this one about CoQ10. So are the studies confirming that supplementing with CoQ10 is beneficial? So those are those two.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about CoQ10 because I knew that was something that was going to come up along
Yeah.
the talk today. As I was saying, look, I know that ubiquinol is expensive. We don't have that much evidence to support its general use to improve egg quality. There's some small studies, as I was saying, that report that maybe the egg quality can be a little bit better. 400 milligrams per day would be a good dose already, and you're already taking the ubiquinol, which is the dose that it's more easily absorbed. So that's fine. But is it worth it? I wish I had the certainty to give you a clear response on that, but I don't have it because I don't have the evidence to support this. So what I would say is that, look, if you're doing one of your last attempts of IVF with your own ex, and you can afford taking it and you have already taken the decision to take it, I would continue with that, because the last thing that I want or that you want is that if for whatever reason then the cycle does not work, that you keep on asking yourself that if you stop the ubiquinol, if that could have made the difference, which I don't think so, honestly. But yeah, that's what I can say to you right now. So the evidence is limited with confirming the benefits of a supplement like CoQ10. Because as I'm saying, it's an antioxidant, so I don't think that it's going to do any harm. But in terms of that, I always think that having a super healthy lifestyle and diet, and trying to follow all those recommendations that I gave you in general for your lifestyle are going to be much more beneficial than if you take the CoQ10, for example, and you keep on smoking one box of cigarettes a day. That's what I would
Okay.
say in general.
Perfect. Thank you so much for telling us this information. Definitely, it's useful for sure for any one of us. And now there's another one for you. Do you think staying away from BPA, plastic, and toxins in cleaning materials helps with fertility?
Wow, Natalie, I really like your questions. Yeah, I mean, obviously, to try to stay away from any kind of endocrine disruptors, that we can do another talk another day about endocrine disruptors, which for whoever doesn't know exactly what it is, endocrine disruptors are those contaminants that we can find all over the place that can have some kind of endocrine function, and that can also jeopardize our likelihood of having a successful outcome with a fertility treatment. Obviously, if you try to stay away from BPA, plastics, and toxins as much as possible, for sure it's going to have a positive effect in your general health and in your likelihood of having at least to not have any diseases that are derived from this, and hopefully will also have a positive effect with fertility. There are already some studies done about BPA related with endometriosis, not specifically with the impact on IVF. I will have a look at that and see if I find something. The thing is that in general, there's a lot of things that are contaminated, and it's very difficult to stay completely away from that. But obviously, if consciously, whenever you're going to the shop, you are already buying things that are BPA free and you are trying to avoid toxins as much as possible, for sure that's going to be beneficial.
All right, perfect. Thank you again for this question. And Dr. Maya, again, for your expertise. We have a different question this time. I have normal BMI, exercise, and try to be active, but I always drink too little water a day. Can this impact my fertility or implantation with donor eggs? I'm 38.
Hi, Hannah. Look, being hydrated, yeah, I haven't mentioned that, and yeah, I'm I'm grateful that you mentioned about that. I think that keeping hydrated is something important. I know that it can be pretty difficult for a lot of people. I think that in general, one of the things that it's helpful for a lot of patients or that I've seen is that whenever you, for example, when you go to work or you go to work out, to try to take your bottle of water with you and try to have at least 1.5 liters, 2 liters a day of water, or if it's not water, it's like, for example, a herbal tea or some kind of fluid that it's not sugary or something like that. I don't think that this is necessarily something that it's going to have a negative effect on your fertility or implantation with donor eggs. But it has more to do with the fact that you are sufficiently hydrated.
And fantastic. Thank you again for your question and your help. And let me go to the next question here. How much sugar could affect equality, or does it affect equality at all?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there is no direct link that that sugar can affect the quality. The thing is that sugar, when we speak about sugar in general terms, it's something that it's very easily found in a lot of the foods that we eat on daily basis. In fact, uh, in general, we are consuming like between 5 and 10 times more sugar than what would be recommended nowadays. In general, I speak about the diet that we have here in Europe and in the developed countries. So this can lead you to more easily have obesity or weight problems, or to have diabetes or insulin resistance, and those are directly linked to have uh, more problems with fertility, in the sense of insulin resistance, for example, is really, it's very related a lot of times with patients who have polycystic ovarian syndrome. They don't have periods, they have poorer egg quality, sometimes because of that, if it's also linked to the insulin resistance, and that can obviously have a negative effect. And on the other hand, if you have an intake of sugar that it's very high every day, that can also lead to obesity, because probably the intake of calories is going to be higher than the one that you need, and that also will have a negative effect on your likelihood of achieving a healthy pregnancy.
And again, thank you so much. All right. Now we have a different question about milk. Okay. I love milk. 1 cup a day. My body feels good after when I stop it, and I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable in my body. Does 1 cup every day is a problem before IVF?
Hi, Julie. It's not a problem at all. We don't have evidence. I mean, very contradictory information about milk. I found studies both supporting milk and saying that milk improves fertility, and other studies saying like we should avoid it. At the end of the story, all the data that we gathered from everything, it's that it's not conclusive. So if you love milk and you don't feel well when you stop drinking milk, it's completely fine that you drink one cup of milk a day. Just make sure that you look for a good source of milk, that it's organic and that it's good quality, and that's it. But not a problem at all. Go on and keep on drinking the milk that you love.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that question and, of course, your advice. Fantastic. Thanks so much. And now we have a bit different question here. Do you recommend taking the HEA hormones before IVF if you have low ovarian reserve or are over 35?
Hmm. Look, with the HEA, the evidence is not that clear. It's something that sometimes it can be considered DHEA or testosterone for patients who are low responders, who have never, who don't respond well to the medication. I think that this is something that you should discuss with your fertility doctor. The evidence with the AGA is not as good as, for example, as testosterone, but both treatments have to be assessed well by the doctor who's going to be undergoing your treatment, to see the protocol. And before taking the AGA, it is very important to make sure that the liver function that you have is completely correct, because sometimes the AGA can alter a little bit liver function. So it's important to monitor that before taking the DHEA and also pending the treatment and after.
And again, thank you for your question. And now let's go to a different question here. Do you recommend taking antioxidants such as R-alpha lipoic acid, vitamin E, etc.?
Hmm. Well, as I said before, I think that the most important thing is to try to get all those antioxidants from the diet directly. So if you have a very rich diet in lots of fruits, fresh vegetables, and all those things, I don't think that it's necessary that you take all those antioxidants. Obviously, and if you are not drinking, not smoking, and all those things. If you take them, if they are going to help you, it's not certain. So besides the folic acid that I said, vitamin D, and in the cases that you have specific deficiencies, I have some patients who, for example, have iron deficiency. I always recommend them to take also the iron, or patients who are vegan and they have to take B12 because there's no good sources in the diet that they have of B12. I don't think that it's necessary, but you can take them if you wish.
All right, and fantastic. Thanks again for this. And now we have a question on acupuncture. So, do you believe there is much benefit in acupuncture in the lead up to stimulation during stimulation?
Hmm. Michaela, thanks for the question. Look, what I can say, when you say benefit, I am not certain if you're specifically asking me if I think that the response from the ovaries is going to be better, or if I think that it's going to help you to be more relaxed and then to have more likelihood of implantation. So far, what I can tell you is that the evidence, like robust scientific evidence about acupuncture in general for the treatment, is not clear. But I can tell you that most of the patients that I have that have used it, they are very happy with acupuncture, and most of them were more relaxed and found it useful during the treatment, and also helped them to cope with the stress. So that it maybe sometimes it might help a little bit to have a better response, maybe, but I'm not certain about that. But I can tell you that to cope with the stress and what the situation, this is something good.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for this one again. And now we have a question here. If I do NGS, there will be about a month in between a collection and fertilization. Can I eat whatever I want then, or do I still need to eat healthy?
Maria, you still need to eat healthy because and there is a very beautiful series of papers that were published in the New England Journal of Medicine, I think last year, about how important it is, everything that we do related with our lifestyle, also before conception. So all your habits, even in the previous 6 months before you get pregnant, are super important and are going to determine a lot of things about the health of your future baby. So even if there is a month in between, I would very strongly recommend you to be as healthy as possible. That doesn't mean,
Yes,
as I said, you can have some treats, okay? But yeah, in general, like your steady base to be super healthy.
fantastic. Thank you so much. And now I have another interesting question. Is it okay to swim after an embryo transfer?
Mm. Hi, Lizette. Thanks for the question. I mean, from the same day of the embryo transfer, of course not. And usually we recommend to not be submerged in water in the next 3-4 days after the embryo transfer, basically because we've just put a catheter inside the uterus. And sometimes with that, just to avoid any risk of infections. So if you wait 4 days or so, that should be fine.
And thanks so much for this question and your answer. And there's another one here. I have hypothyroidism, which is controlled by medication. Can that still result in miscarriage?
Hmm. Usually, Lisette, if the hypothyroidism is well under control, that should not be a cause of miscarriage. Hypothyroidism is linked with a higher likelihood of miscarriage when it is not controlled and you're not taking the medication. But if you're taking the medication, it should be fine.
Thank you. again for the question and your help here as well. And there's another short one question here. Does BMI also impact donor egg pregnancy?
Yes, BMI also impacts the likelihood of achieving a pregnancy with the eggs of an egg donor. So it is the risk not only of complications with the pregnancy, but also the risk of miscarriage are higher when we have very high BMI.
Okay, thank you. There's another one which is a short question, straightforward question. What do I do if egg quality is poor?
Hi Santosh, I wish I had a magic answer for that question because there's there's very little or almost nothing that you can do when egg quality is poor. I mean, you can try to be as healthy as possible. All those things that I explained related with lifestyle and diet are things that can help, but at the end of the day, there are some factors that unfortunately we cannot control, and they are what they are, and we have the tools that we have to cope with them, which are age and egg quality. So, I mean, there's not, even though I have patients who are super healthy and they're super fit and super strong and they feel fantastic. They have a fantastic diet, but they are 46. So if you're 46, even if you're taking very good care of yourself, your egg quality is not going to be good enough probably to give you a pregnancy with your own eggs, and you will need an egg donor. So it comes to a point that there's things that we cannot change. And so, yeah, that's what I can say. Sorry, guys, I don't know if you're hearing noises, but now it's 8 p.m. in Spain, and as everyone is confined at home with the COVID-19, usually at 8 p.m. we all go out in our balconies to clap our hands just to say thanks to all the doctors and all the people who are in the hospitals working and dealing with the
Okay.
COVID-19. So sorry for the noise.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. I mean, this definitely is those are strange times, but it's a good initiative as well, for sure.
Mhm.
And so, as you already see, we have another question: is
Mhm.
weightlifting at the gym okay in the first trimester?
Mm. Natalie, it depends on what kind of weightlifting we're saying. If you're just lifting small weights, I don't think that that should be an important problem. If we're speaking about super big weights and you are very fit, probably it's something that I would not recommend doing right now during the first trimester of pregnancy. I mean, I would probably go for something more gentle physical activity. I would not recommend, for example, doing any high intensity training or lifting weights that are too heavy during the first trimester of pregnancy for sure.
All
Because
right.
first trimester of pregnancy it's always delicate, and you don't want to be if something doesn't go as expected, you don't want to be having to worry or asking yourself if that has had any relationship with the fact that you were lifting weights at the gym. Yeah.
And thank you again for this one. Okay, and now we have few questions left, and this will be our final call for the questions. Okay, but
Mhm.
let's get to it right now. Here it is. Hormone given for IVF treatment are said to be associated with increased risk of cancer. Is it true? If yes, what are the alternatives?
Hi, Julie. Well, I mean, obviously, if you were taking the drugs that we give you for IVF forever, that could lead in some specific cases to a little bit higher risk of having some cancers. But obviously, when we're doing an IVF cycle, we give you that medication for 2 weeks, the stimulation medication. And in that sense, there are no alternatives of medications to stimulate the ovaries or to do the endometrial preparation. We have the drugs that we have. And for each specific treatment, for example, if we're speaking about embryo transfer, when we do the treatment with the eggs of an egg donor, there is the possibility of doing the transfer with natural cycle in the case that you have regular cycles. But if you already have the menopause or you already have stopped having cycles or your cycles are very irregular, this is not possible. And in the terms of medication to stimulate the ovaries for an IVF, there are no alternatives. I don't think that this should be a major concern in the sense of cancer, because if the risk of cancer was very high, we would not be doing these treatments.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you so much for explaining this to us as well. And I believe this will be our last question for today, unless you have some other ones. So go ahead and type them in, okay? Here it is then. I suffer from colitis and I have retroverted uterus. Can the colitis have influence on the final result of assisted reproduction techniques?
Hmm. Hi, Julia. I guess when you're saying colitis, you mean ulcerative colitis, the intestinal disease. This is obviously an autoimmune disease, so it can have had an impact on the result of the reproductive outcome, depending on the moment in which you were, if you had a flare of the colitis while you were doing the treatment or not. Probably it might have had some kind of impact. The fact that your uterus is retroverted, it's something that it's not related with infertility. A retroverted uterus is just something. It's a way to describe the position of your uterus. It can be anteverted in what we call indifferent position or retroverted, but it's considered a variety of the normality, a variant of the normality. But the colitis, as it is an autoimmune disease, it can have had some impact. Yes.
And fantastic. Thank you so much for this. And as I mentioned, it was our I said that it will be our last question, but we have one more, so I guess we can still do it, right? So here it is. Many experts recommend taking folate rather than folic acid.
Mhm.
What is your opinion? Also, what is your opinion on organic cold pressed flaxseed oil for both egg donors and surrogates?
Angela, thanks for the question. It's very interesting the topic that you're bringing here about folate rather than folic acid. We could stay a lot of time speaking about that as well. For patients who have alterations on the metabolism of the folic acid, like patients who have um, the genetic condition of alterations in the meta tetrahydrofolate reductase, they will absorb better the folate rather than the folic acid. If you don't have any problem like this, you can take regular folic acid. But if you have any problems with the absorption, then you should be taking the folate. And my opinion on organic cold pressed flaxseed oil for both egg donors and surrogates, as far as I know, there is no specific evidence on having to use it. And as I was saying, if you have a very healthy diet already, and we make sure that you're having a good intake of good quality fats and everything, I don't think that it's necessary.
And great. Thank you so much for that question and your help again. There is one question here, so I guess we can still answer it, okay? Hello, I did AMH test and the result is quite low for my age. I'm 33. Is it a problem and should I be worried?
Hi, Liubov. The fact that here we have two things that we have to take in consideration. The positive thing is that you are 33, okay? So you are still quite young. And that means that hopefully and most likely the quality of the eggs is going to still be good. The AMH is one of the tools that we use to calculate which is your ovarian reserve, but it's not the only information. Okay, we also use what we call the antral follicular count, which is the information that we get out of when we do a transvaginal scan, and we count how many eggs we see in the ovaries. In that case, I don't have this information, so we would have to assess the information all together. The fact that you have a low number of eggs, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a problem if you want to be a mom. The thing that it has to be assessed and that you have to consider is if you have been seeking a pregnancy for a long time, it's probably a moment to do an IVF treatment, and then to consider the different treatments that you can have. Another important thing is to consider if you would like to have one child or more than one child, and pending also, and if you have a partner and the quality of his sperm and everything, consider the different options, because intrauterine insemination would be an option. But for example, if you are thinking that you would like to have more than one child, what I would consider is that it would be better to try to do IVF, and if necessary and possible, accumulate some embryos frozen, because that way you could achieve a pregnancy with the first embryo that comes. transfer, or second, hopefully. And then if you want to have another pregnancy in the future, you will have embryos frozen that you can use in the future. Because we know that there is going to be a decline with time on your egg quality and quantity, and we don't know how quickly that's going to happen. So maybe if you have a child now with the treatment, everything goes well, but then 1 year, 2 years after, you want to have another child, maybe your AMH is even lower, and then it's more difficult to have a pregnancy. That's what I would say. I think that it's good because it's information, and when it's information, that means that you have the tools to start moving things and do whatever it takes to start the treatment. I wish you very good luck, Lugo.
Yes, exactly, for sure. Fingers crossed, okay? All right, and as I already said, it will be our last question, but since we have another one here, I just want to show it to you. However, please know that we will be finishing, so any unanswered questions we will have, we will simply forward them to Dr. Maria, and I'm sure her team will be able to get back to you too, okay, on that. So the last question is, can we do anything in our lifestyle with diet to help prepare the uterus for implantation?
Yes, Natalie. What follow the general advice that I gave you in terms of the diet, that mainly based on fruit and vegetables, and to try to make sure that the intake of calories eats according to what you need, and that your BMI is in control, and that you have a good source of good quality fats and protein as well.
And and thank you so much for this as well. And as I've mentioned, this will be our last question for today. And in fact, I don't see any other questions, so I just wanted to show you that we have some comments, some thank yous. So um, just to say thank you for the information provided that contribute to lessen stress associated with not knowing. Thank you, Julie,
Thank you,
for
Julie, for being
so.
here.
Thank you. So there are some more. So let me show you. Thank you so much for answering all my questions, Maria. Which clinic are you located? And if you can, if we want to contact you, so
Yes, Lisette,
sure.
I'm at Fertility International, and I'm based in Barcelona. And I will make sure that my team looks for the way to contact us. If not, you can contact us at Fertility International and request an online consultation with me free of charge for an initial assessment of your case.
Exactly, that's correct. And of course, you can also forward any messages to us, and we will be happy to forward them to Dr. Maria and her team. And I'm just sending you my email address. If you wish, just send me a message that you're interested, and we can definitely do it. As I've mentioned, there are plenty more thank you. So thank you guys for that, for commenting, and we are happy that you are happy with the answers too. And well, thank you once again, Dr. Maria, yet again for supporting us and joining us over and over again. And I hope that you will never stop. It's always a pleasure to have you here. And also, just wanted to thank you for taking part in our Stronger Together action. We definitely appreciate it. It's always, as I've mentioned, a pleasure. Okay. Are there any other few words you would like to add?
Yeah, I just would like to say thank you to everyone who joined the webinar. I hope that you all stay safe. And yeah, I wish you all the best of luck with your fertility journey. Okay. And I'm more than happy to participate in that initiative of Stronger Together, and keep on helping you guys cope with a very difficult time, which is having to put a stop on fertility treatments. Okay.
Exactly.
Have a
Exactly.
great night.
Thank you so much. And also, I
Take
just wanted
care.
to just let you know that we are actually live today again at 8 p.m. UK time. So stay tuned, and we will tackle another topic on egg donation this time. So, and also remember that all of our previous patient meetings or IVF webinars can be found on our myivfanswer.com website. you can also follow us on our YouTube channel, Facebook page, and also Instagram, so you will be up to date every single day, because as you know, we will be back here tomorrow as well, and on Monday, and so on throughout the whole month. So stay tuned. Thank you a lot for being here with us again, Dr. Maria. See you soon, I'm sure, and have a lovely evening too. Bye bye.
You too. Bye, Caroline. Thanks for everything.
Thank
You've
you.
been a great
Bye.
host as always. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.